And so, I am ending this long-running saga. I am cancelling the rest of the HS2 project. And in its place, we will reinvest every single penny, £36 billion, in hundreds of new transport projects in the North and the Midlands across the country. This means £36 billion of investment in the projects that will make a real difference across our nation.
So how about that for some big news? Don't get much bigger than that. Hello everyone, how are you all doing? East Coast Train Spotting here, back with the railway news for October 2023. So as you can tell from the video I've just played, Rishi Sunak has now cancelled the HS2 project. Now, it was earlier scaled back, with the section from Manchester to Leeds being cancelled a few years ago by Boris Johnson. However, now Rishi Sunak has cancelled the entire project. So I'm not sure what that means for the bits that have already been built, if the infrastructure will be used in almost in the same way as the road schemes were when they were cancelled and they sort of joined it together to make the M25. They might join bits together to make a new sort of line around the London area, but yeah, the whole project's now been cancelled, and in its place is, I believe, has been called Network North, which at the minute seems to be a map that's been lazily stitched together almost, just picking out place names and not really doing a right lot. However, hopefully the investment does solve the problems we currently have in the north, because the travel links up north are not excellent. So it would be really good if some of the money could be used to improve what we have up here and possibly get some newer rolling stock. I know that Northern have put that tender out, so keep an eye on that. But yeah, massive news that. Another interesting development this month was the unveiling of the 08E. It's a shunter derived from the standard British Rail Class 08. However, it's been heavily modified by positive traction. It will run off of 100% battery power in the hope of achieving net zero, reducing the emissions, as well as prolonging the life of the Class 08 shunter. Following up here on the HSTs to Mexico, as you can see here, the first sets has been out running. Now what's interesting to note from this video is the consist. It's formed of 3 TGS coaches, those being the guards coaches. So it's rather interesting to see that as a formation. It's very wacky, and I can only wonder what is actually inside the guards compartment now. Very interesting indeed. And whilst on the topic of export of the HSTs, it's worth noting that now not only will the HSTs be going to Mexico, where they already are, as seen in the last video, some of the sets are also bound for Nigeria. In a very interesting country that we never thought we'd see a HST venture to, but indeed that's where they will be going. And at this point, most of the sets are now currently in Yarmouth, with more joining every day. It's pretty chaotic down there, actually. There's that many HSTs, but they are being moved by road on a weekly basis to the docks at Yarmouth, and then onwards export to where they're bound. So it'd be interesting to keep an eye out to see what livery and what developments take place when they reach Nigeria as well as Mexico. So over the last few weeks, as I'm sure you're aware, there's been some very heavy rainfall, which has caused absolute carnage on a lot of the railway lines across the country, but most notably just north of Newcastle, near Morpeth, where a bridge on the East Coast Main Line has partially collapsed. This bridge carries the East Coast Main Line over the River Blythe. However, due to the complete structural failure, the southbound line has had to be ripped up, with Network Rail saying it could take months to repair. The northbound line is still in situ and is having to be used for traffic travelling in both directions and at a reduced speed of just 5 miles an hour. So for people travelling on the East Coast Main Line, it's not going to be a pleasant experience for the next few months, unfortunately. So seen here is the news from DB for this month, which is Class 60015, seen here having disgraced itself in spectacular fashion just outside Lincoln on the oil train from Humber Oil Refinery. The loco, as can be seen in the video and very dramatically in the picture, set on fire. Nobody was injured. However, the loco is likely not to return to traffic given the current state the Class 60 fleet is in, with most having been withdrawn already. It's not likely that this will receive the maintenance to bring it back to traffic, unfortunately. Moving on to news from DRS now, and unfortunately it's more bad news for Heritage Diesel fans, as 5 more Class 37s have been put up for sale, those being 37069, 37402, 37423, which, as we know, were put up for sale a couple of months back now. However, joining them is 2 of the better ones, 37218, which was notably repainted into a Heritage DRS livery for the Crewe Open Day, and my personal favourite, 37401, Mary Queen of Scots, which is currently in the York Railhead pool and has worked in this season's Railhead. However, it has been cited on many gen groups that it's very low on engine hours before it needs to be withdrawn and overhauled, which, given that they want to sell it, is not likely to happen, so it may only see one more run now with DRS before being stood down. So that's definitely one to keep an eye on if you'd like to see it on the main line. And yeah, very unfortunate news. So to finish off this month's railway news is the Rail Tour roundup for the coming month. So starting off with week 1, and I must say this month is looking excellent, as with the run up to Christmas there's plenty of steam action about, especially on the East Coast Main Line. The first week's pretty quiet, however, with just the LSL HST running a return trip between Ayr in Scotland and Whitby, forming the Whitby Jet. This will be the Midland Pullman HST set. Week 2 sees a blockbuster lineup of tours, starting on Saturday the 11th with the LSL Midland Pullman, once again forming the Whitby Jet, this time from Potters Bar via the East Coast Main Line to Whitby and return. Also on this day, 45596 Bahamas will be working from London Victoria to Strood. Wednesday the 15th will see a loco from the LSL Steam Pool operating between West London and Worcester for a return trip. Thursday the 16th will see 34046 Braunton operating from London King's Cross to York and back on one of the numerous White Rose services that will take place between now and Christmas. And Saturday the 18th we'll also see another trip between King's Cross and York, this time by a locomotive from the West Coast Rail Steam Pool. Week 3 sees another massive lineup of tours, starting on Sunday the 19th, where Flying Scotsman will be working between York and Carlisle via the Settle and Carlisle for a return trip. Tuesday the 21st we'll see a steam locomotive which is yet to be confirmed, operating between London Victoria and Cardiff. Thursday the 23rd we'll see both Bahamas again operating between Erling Broadway and Nottingham for a return trip, as well as a Deltic operating up the East Coast Main Line from King's Cross to York, where 60007 Sir Nigel Gresley will take over to take the trip forward to Edinburgh. Saturday the 25th we'll see D345 or Class 40 145 as it's also known, operating between Burton-upon-Trent and Salisbury for a return trip, as well as 2 locomotives from the West Coast Steam Pool operating to Chester. One starting from Bristol and operating to Chester, and the other starting from Chester and operating to London Paddington, both on return trips. And finally, week 4 will see the return leg of the trip from Edinburgh, with Sir Nigel Gresley hauling from Edinburgh as far as York, where she will be replaced by the Deltic to take the tour onwards to King's Cross. Tuesday the 28th, we'll see a steam locomotive, again yet to be confirmed, from the Vintage Trains Pool, operating from Birmingham New Street to York and return. Tuesday the 28th, we'll see Braunton again, operating between London Victoria and Bath Spa for a return trip. And finally, Wednesday the 29th, we'll see a locomotive from the LSL Steam Pool, operating between London Euston and Manchester Piccadilly, again for a return trip. So that concludes the railway news for October 2023 and the Rail Tour Roundup. I hope you enjoyed and found this video useful. If you did, a like would be greatly appreciated. It only takes a second to do, but it helps me to grow the channel and it really means a lot. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next month hopefully to bring you the railway news for November. Goodbye.